Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Don't Panic. It is Friday. It's the weekend. Happy TGIF to all of you. And I'm really excited about today's show because we are kind of changing the tone a little bit. It's usually like very lighthearted and everything, but this show is just going to be a little more serious because this show is all about addiction. I know that in the last week, we had kind of discussed it, and I said, you know what, I've kind of just been lingering on this topic about, whether I should do a show on it or not, because I don't know too much about it, but I thought, wait a minute, if I don't know a lot about it, why don't I do a show so I can educate myself and a lot of other people as well? And so without further ado, I'm going to have all of my guests introduce themselves and what they do, starting right here.
What we do?
Well,
What don't we do?
I know, that's right.
My name is Sarah Joy Mount, and I am a actor, model, and horse trainer.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Horse trainer.
I love horses.
Well, hello, Sarah.
Sarah Joy.
Sarah
Joy.
Joy. I'm already starting off on the wrong foot. Y'all.
That's it. You're fired.
It's okay
Bye.
because I misspelled her name on the flyer and she let me have it. So,
Girl.
I know.
Hi, all. My name's Kyle Infante. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I am kind of a digital marketing jack of all trades. I work in traditional, mixed, out of home, and my specialty is digital and SEO. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Yay. And you know how to handle a microphone too.
I do.
Just the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Chaselyn Wade. I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. I've worked with Israel for many years on different projects, and I am someone who also comes from a passive addiction, and I guess we'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm. And you also know someone, you were in a
someone, yes.
relationship with someone who overdosed,
Yes,
from what I understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And from what I understand, you're also talking about this for the first time live or to the public.
Yeah, so it might be a little difficult for me a couple
Okay.
times, so if everybody just be patient with me, that would be
Got it.
appreciated.
Well-
I'm going to try to make sure I say the right things.
Right.
Well, and I guess I feel like I should kind of throw
Yeah.
in there because I didn't know that we were supposed to touch in on that. I am an addict. I'm an addict in recovery. I have 12 years clean.
Got it.
Awesome.
And guys, before we start going into that, excuse me, I wanted to kind of touch on, because it's all over the news and I'm very vocal about certain things that I'm passionate about. And this whole, Charlottesville, Virginia thing has really bothered me, especially because of the reaction that we've had from our president. Have all of you kept,
I feel like
updated
it's impossible
on this?
not to in this
Yeah.
political climate. Like, you literally have to be the Unabomber in a shed in the forest not to know what's going on
Right,
anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I wanted to bring up about that story is when I see certain news stories, they talk about white nationalists. And I think to myself, stop calling them that. They're white supremacists. They are racists. They are, neo-Nazis. Those are the proper terms. For whatever reason, unless I'm alone on this, but white nationalist sounds kind of sweet. It's almost like sugarcoating it. Like they're not terrorists.
Right.
Agreed.
They are domestic terrorists. And I think that that's the problem already, is when they say, in Charlottesville, there were, white nationalists. I'm like, all right, I already hate this program because they're trying to sweeten it up. And I don't think that they should be, because you can have terrorists who don't have to be another race.
Right.
Yes.
I was going to say,
And who can be white on top of
if they
it.
had been
Right.
Muslim or something like that,
Oh,
and had
terrorist,
driven a
terrorist,
car,
terrorist.
it would have been like, completely called a terrorist.
Well,
for
and
sure.
that's what I heard somebody say, or somebody post on Facebook, is that if this were, if you placed this, changed the faces, made them all black, and had it be a different organization, it would be a completely handled completely differently. And, we wouldn't be seeing it sugar-coated. It would be the opposite.
And it's just because they're white. I mean,
Yes.
that's the only reason I can think of that they don't want to call them a terrorist, a not local, domestic terrorist. And then, of course, after all of that happens, okay, so for those of you who have been not keeping up, the gist of it is they are planning on taking down a lot of monuments, statues of Confederate soldiers, Confederate leaders, and these people decided to come out. Most of them, if not all of them, were Caucasian male. Were there females in there?
There was.
There was. Okay, so Caucasian people.
They probably walked at the back of the line.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good point.
Oh, that just happened.
Girl.
I mean, that might be true
Yeah.
because that's their mentality, right? It's pretty archaic, but it does exist. And they were carrying, I was about to say torches, but it was tiki torches, like
Tiki
from
torches.
from.
Well, they didn't want
like-
to. They didn't want to burn themselves.
Well, and it's so much easier to carry a tiki torch than like an actual.
They didn't want to take it old school, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and
That's
you
a
can
lot
get that
more
at
effort.
IKEA,
Yeah.
you know, so you
Exactly.
can get it on a really good price.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
and-
can buy wholesale.
Right, and it turns out that even the company came out against them, saying, "Hey, please, we do not condone
Yeah.
this behavior."
Where's the company based from? I wonder. Are they made in China?
Oh,
You're just whipping them
She's
out
ready.
today, aren't
I'm
you?
ready, bitch. I'm sick and tired of it.
So then we have the response from Trump, which was, "We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides." And then he
Many
repeated
sides.
it, on many sides. So what is your reaction when he came out with that?
Girl,
Here we go.
you got two sides. One side had Nazis, one side didn't. Do we have to choose which one is the lesser of two evils here?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Didn't we win a war with them?
And so then
You don't get to, I have a meme on my Facebook that says you don't get to be an American citizen and a Nazi at the same time. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. And so what's happened now is he didn't say anything for 48 hours, and then he said that, and then there was another couple of days that have gone by, and he actually got worse with all of his comments. Pretty much, I felt that he was a parent with a problem kid who beats up all the kids all the time, and this parent keeps defending that kid. That's how I felt about him with, against these neo-Nazi racist people out there, spouting hate. Now, my question to all of you is, should these statues come down? Because they do document, in a way, a piece of our history. Should we keep them up or not?
Go, girl. Come on.
Museums would
Yeah.
be. I mean, there's lots of things that are in museums that acknowledge the past. I think the problem is a lot of these sculptures and statues are being paid for by taxes. And
So it's a public thing.
It's a public thing, and can you imagine paying for an anti-Mexican general or something like that
Right.
your your money's going for, or someone who is misogynistic against women, and women having to pay for a statue for that? It's just
Right.
not. It's a little bit of a slap in the face. Yeah.
I agree with talking about the museum and stuff, because the reality is that there's so many things that have touched the lives of Americans that we can't close our eyes
Right.
to.
Yeah.
But we don't have to have it on display like we're celebrating it.
Yeah.
The Holocaust, for instance, the Holocaust Museum.
Exactly. That's what I was just
I mean,
thinking when
that's
you brought that up.
it's just one of the most undoubtedly the most horrible things that humans have ever done against themselves.
But it is documented.
It is
and it's
documented, and you see
in a
horrible,
museum.
horrible
And
things.
and
I've
it
been
should be
to it.
documented.
It's
It
awful.
should be. And I completely
You know.
agree with that.
And when you find out that they used to have enough hair that they could stuff mattresses and sell it for a company
Right.
stuffing mattresses with Jewish hair. I
Right,
mean,
and
it's-
this is an embarrassing part of our history, and I do agree that it should be documented. For me, when it's a monument or a statue, you're
Right.
looking up to this person.
Yeah.
So I personally do feel that they need to be taken down. I'm surprised now it just takes like a certain incident or a certain series of incidents for you to see something and say, wow, that's always existed.
And here's
now
what's really interesting. It's not always existed, first of all. Most of the sculptures have been put up since the 50s and 60s
Yeah.
with the Jim Crow era. They haven't been there since 1800. Okay, so no, they haven't always been there. They've
Right.
been there since America was great.
Right, which was in the 50s is when
Yeah.
everything. That's when Christianity began as well, and all of those black and white sitcoms that sort of portrayed the perfect family, and that's what I think Trump and a lot of other people mean when they say let's make America great again. It's the myth that everyone actually lived like these sitcoms, but it
Yeah.
never really existed. We've been dysfunctional since the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I was a kid, I remember being in grade school, and if somebody got a toy, I remember turning it over and being like, "It was made in China. It's gonna break." Like I remember that was a thing. I remember that if it wasn't, made in the United States, that it wasn't quality. And now that's not the case. No. Now nothing is made here and we're losing ourselves.
Even Walmart had made in the USA, and you don't see those signs anymore.
No, because nothing's made here anymore.
I think it goes deeper than, the statues and the unrest that's been surrounded with everything going on. I think it's a cultural thing that, like you brought up, we've got to have these series of events that happen to finally start to ponder these things that have been here for hundreds of years, And I think specifically in Charlottesville and with all of the different monuments that are coming up into question, I think we're starting to see how past history is affecting contemporary culture today. And so this is what I relate the Charlottesville thing to. I'm half Cuban, which I know is shocking looking at me.
I'm a quarter Cuban.
Yeah. Oh, you are?
I am.
I heard you've had Cuban in you before.
I'm sure that's not all she's had in her. She's been sober for 12 years, girl.
Oh, some stories that you don't
Girl.
want to hear. Or maybe you do.
But like as a second generation immigrant and growing up, and this was a really specific thing that used to get on my nerves. So in the mid 2000s, Hot Topic sold the shit out of these Che Guevara shirts. And so I would hear these stories from my grandfather who immigrated from Cuba to protect his children and his wives' lives and their freedom, and seeing these people celebrated. And it would frustrate me. And I mean, I was in that angsty teenage phase, so I was especially irritable, right? And so it made me think to myself, like, why are we celebrating this? And this is the hard part that I have to consider, because I like to see both perspectives. For a completely different set of people, it's this thing that's revered, like especially in the Argentinian culture, that's what began kind of like the upheaval and change. And so while I may not agree with the atrocious, horrific things that happened in Charlottesville, because when somebody loses their life, it is never okay, no matter what the circumstances are. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like as a person of faith, like I think God has the ultimate say in what's going on. And that's why I don't really get involved in politics, because whatever's going on in America, it's like.
Right. And we have to cut to break.
Okay.
So close it out really quick.
I just think that, as we continue to evolve in this situation, I think, and my hope is that we all come together, we're able to hear each other's perspectives and kind of come to an understanding that, maybe things are meant for museums and other ththings are meant for consideration.
Yeah. Okay. Didn't mean to cut you off, but we had to cut to break. And guys, when we come back, we are going to talk to Chaselyn Wade, who I don't know what all you're going to talk about because we haven't really talked about this, but I do know that
Wherever you touch on.
Yeah. But I do know that you that there is someone that you were in a relationship with who had an overdose. I don't even know all of the details, but don't go anywhere. We're going to cut to break, and we're going to come back and talk about it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Don't Panic. If you are just now joining us, I'm going to have all of my guests reintroduce themselves for you.
I'm going to do this right this time. My name is Sarah Joy, and I am an addict. I have 12 years clean. I am active in recovery. I'm also a model, actor, and horse trainer.
Nice.
Well, hello, Sarah Joy.
Do you ride bareback?
I do. My legs are very strong.
Yes.
My name's Kyle Infante. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been sober since July 6, 2013. I'm very involved in the recovery community, and I actively work a program of recovery. And I'm also involved in the recovery industry, and I do all things marketing and media.
I'm Chaselyn Wade, and I'm not quite in as much recovery as they are. I've not done any seriously hard drugs in about 13 years.
Nice. Now, I do know that you were in a relationship maybe a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And there was a very unfortunate incident where now he is no longer with us. He has died.
That's correct.
So I know that when you knew that I was going to have a show about this topic, you were the first one to speak up and said, I want to be on the show. And I thought it would be a very interesting perspective of someone who was in love with someone who I guess, did he have an overdose? Tell us
So,
about it.
I guess
His name is Jake.
Yeah, Jake. Yes,
I
of
just
course.
said his name.
I have a pretty good relationship with his mother, and that has developed since he passed away. Jake was a local entertainer. We'd been together for 17 months. Throughout that time, I realized that he had, he drank often, but so do I. But it wasn't one of those things where he woke up in the morning and had a beer or something like that. But, there were times he was out and about and had fun.
How long were y'all together, by the way?
17 months.
Okay, 17 months.
We lived together for 17 months.
Got it. And I remember meeting him because
Yes.
When our next break is going to be a music
Yes.
video that we all shot together.
Yes.
And that was, I think, the most that I ever hung out with him.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Nice guy.
Nice
really
guy, would do
funny,
anything for you.
Would do anything for me. We
Yeah.
were both entertainers, and we love to entertain together. There's multiple times that we've done performances together for different shows and pageants and things that I've been in.
So then when did you notice something?
Well, as I touched on the drinking, because there were sometimes he would come home and it was like next level drunk. And I was like, this is more than alcohol.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that he had been taking Xanax. And I started inquiring about sometimes, he was certain kind of groggy acting, and his behavior was just a little different. It was never a mean person, just I could tell physically there was something going on. And eventually I realized that he was taking, he was prescribed Xanax for anxiety. He himself had been a past crystal meth user, for many years, and he had been sober for a long time.
And so just out of curiosity, when you met him, when did he reveal all of these things to you in the
I guess it took a
relationship?
couple of months before I realized, I was like, are you taking, I saw him pop a pill or something. I'm like, what was that? He goes, oh, it's my daily Xanax, So he didn't really abuse his Xanax too often. He would usually take, half of a pill a day. And that pretty much would be okay. Some days he would take 2 pills, if he was having a bad day, a sense of depression and things like that.
Would you see him take them, or would you ask him because of his behavior?
You know what? It's really looking back on it, I probably in 17 months only saw him take a pill like 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typical addict behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And usually when I would see him take a pill, he'd be like, I need another pill.
Yeah.
It wasn't his first. So
at that
craving.
I'm like, oh wow, he took another pill. I mean, he must be really. But he was a very anxious, nervous kind of person.
So at that moment, when was it that you had a talk with him, like sat him down and said, "Okay, so let's talk about this"? I mean, did that ever happen?
It happened. I asked him, multiple, a couple times. I was like, so how many do you take, and is something I need to be aware of? And then one time, I didn't really realize until we got ready to take a trip, and he was like, I'm almost out of Xanax. I'm like, well, how many do you have? He's like, I've got like X amount. So, okay, he goes, but no, you don't understand. I have to have them before I leave town. I was like, well, I mean, we're just going to be gone for a couple of days.
So just out of curiosity, I mean, you nod your head and you're going,
Yeah.
Because does this sound like a typical
Oh
behavior?
my God. I refused to travel for
Yeah.
the longest time
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be without. And especially with benzos, without benzos, you have
You
seizures. You can
physically
die.
have to have them.
Okay.
It's just like the opiates.
You can die coming off of stuff like that.
Because he couldn't go to his regular doctor to get them, then of course I did what I had to do, and I acquired them,
Yeah.
shall we say.
Crafty.
So I acquired them for him, and everything was good and golden, and there we went on our trip.
Yeah.
But at that point, I realized something was up. I think in the long term, if you want me to go ahead and touch on how things kind of ended,
Yeah.
this is something that I haven't spoken about in public or on social media whatsoever since it happened.
Well, before you go into that, I know from my perspective, I remember seeing Facebook posts that he went missing.
Mm-hmm.
He went missing.
And so that's all that we knew as far as like everybody else who was not deeply involved like you were. I just knew he was missing. And then it became a serious thing because then there was like a news article written
Right.
about it that he was missing. And that's when I thought, ooh, this
it
is
was
serious.
on the news. It was new TV and everything.
Yeah. So
It,
so what
you
was
know,
happening?
and out of the respect of his mother, I just have not discussed it because I wanted to make sure that I had the right things to say about it at that, or right reason to discuss it. And so that's the only reason why I'm talking about it today, because we kept our relationship extremely private. I believe in a private life. I do a lot of my things in public, but I think when it comes to my love life and things like that, I prefer to keep them private.
Right.
And it was such a traumatic thing for me to see what occurred that evening, you know. And I don't want to get into the really disgusting details of that evening, but I can just put it.
Were you there when it happened?
I was very present when it happened. Yes. He had been in this depression for weeks on ends, and you know his car broke down. And when his car broke down, I was like, "It's okay. We'll go get you a $75 battery tomorrow. Don't worry about it." And it was just this mood, this gloom. It was almost like it was raining on him.
Yeah.
Like you could just see it was just heavy on him. And this small thing, but it was like the last thing that I think he could deal with. He was having financial problems. He had emotional problems. And
so what happened at the end when he was missing? Like did he leave
what,
and then
what,
you couldn't?
Well, what happened was, he had these Xanax that he had just refilled a prescription for. Mm-hmm. You get 60 at a time. They were a legal prescription. He had only taken like 8 of them. And out of depression, I said, it's going to be okay. And he's like, it's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
I can relate.
And then the next thing I know, he has the bottle of pills and swallowing 52 Xanax pills in front of me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
When he swallowed the 52 Xanax pills in front of me, I immediately called 911 and was like, "Oh my God, what have you done?" And he ran out the door, and I never saw him again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He basically went and sat in the woods behind the apartments and sat down beside a tree, and he passed away. And so the next day, his mother was getting married. This was on Saturday
And
night.
then I do know that you were getting a lot of negativity from his family because they thought that you had something to do with it.
It wasn't his immediate family. He has triplet brothers, and his mother. They were all very good to me. There were some cousins and some friends from high school that thought that I had something to do with it, or I got a lot of social media saying they need to investigate her. And as you're going to see in this video coming up, we shot this like 6 months prior to that, and people were like, "Well, that's so weird that she did that video with him," and it was just. So not only am I dealing with the fact that I just watched someone commit suicide in front of me, he's still missing. He was gone for a month. They did not find him for a month.
Right.
This entire time, I had hoped that he was going to be found, and dealing with that, and then also the repercussions of people accusing you of things like that, and it was by far something that I never ever would have thought would have occurred from his daily one Xanax day usage.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I think that he was desensitized to having the Xanax, and I think having someone who had a mental illness and having that ability to hold something in their hand that they could think about and know that would do it.
Well, what I'm curious about is from your perspective and what you were thinking when you realized when they found him and he was dead. What did you feel as far as did you feel I could have helped? I could have done this. What was going through your head?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a lot of things that went through my head as far as like, the last song that I heard with him, or the last conversation we had, or, warning signs months in the past, that there just wasn't something, there was something not right. Mm-hmm. And, one of the warning signs was actually, this happened on January 23rd, back in October the 5th, he left town and took my car with him. And I was going to drive his car because he had to drive out of town, and my car's really great on gas and his is not. So I was going to drive his car, and I got into his car, and the car was so dirty. Oh. And we lived together for over a year, but we never took his car because I had to pay parking spot in front of the apartment. Yeah. He drove long distance all the time, so we just always took my car. Yeah. I'd never been in his car but twice maybe when I first met him. And so when I got into his car, and there was trash piles in the back of it, and there was just things of hoarding. It was just, I was very alarmed and called him and was like, what is going on? Something's not right. This isn't right. No one's supposed to live like this.
And that's probably his normal.
Yeah. And so I went and had his car detailed and cleaned and everything. I pulled like 5 trash bags full of trash out of his car. Yeah. And that just, to me, was something about how he felt about himself, that he surrounded himself in such way.
Right. So now, fast forwarding 2 years to today, how do you feel about it today? Like, how are you doing?
It's still devastating.
Yeah. Okay.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. I know now that there's nothing that I could have done. I talked to his brothers, I've talked to his mom, and they've all assured me that, I did as best as I could do with the knowledge that I had, and that they don't blame me, and that they, love me very much. And, I went with his mom for the 1 year and anniversary, I guess, or a date of his death, to his funeral, to his grave in Oklahoma. But to this day, I know I couldn't have changed things, but looking back, with the knowledge I have now, I think I could have done something differently.
Well,
and what that is, I don't know, but I just not. Now I know I could have done something.
Well, after
now
we
I have
get
the option of doing nothing.
After we get their stories as well, we'll see if there could have been something. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe you did everything you could. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this for the first time. Guys, we are going to cut to a break, and what you're going to see is a music video. This is, even though it's a funny subject matter and everything, this is a fan video that we did of Madonna's song called, say the title because my family's watching. I can't say this.
You want me to say it?
Yeah.
F you.
I effed up.
I effed up. No, I'm saying F you. I fucked up.
Yeah, and it's a fun video, and watch this in a lighthearted way because.
And by the way, it was his idea for the plot twist, I think.
Yeah, he was
all about the plot twist.
Yeah, and so just watch the video, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Kyle and get his story. Don't go anywhere.
F you.
Have y'all seen this?
I fucked up. I made a mistake. Nobody does it better than myself. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid to say. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I'm so ashamed. You're in so much pain. I blamed you when things didn't go my way. If I didn't, you'd be here. If I didn't fight back, I'd have no fear. If I took another path, things would be so different. But they're not. I could have just kept my big mouth closed. I could have just done what I was told. Maybe I should have turned silver into gold. But in front of you, I was cold. I fucked up. I made a mistake. Nobody does it better than myself. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid to say. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. we were indestructible. I never imagined we could fall. You wanna know how to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. We could have bought a house with a swimming pool, fill it up with walls, it would be so cool. Could have gone riding stallions in the countryside with a pack of Great Danes racing eye to eye. We could have toured the world in a private jet, run naked on the beach, all soaking wet. We could have climbed a mountain, seen a perfect sunrise, written our names across the sky. We could have gotten drunk and driven on the autobahn. We could have got ourselves arrested and Saint Germain. We could have lived like crazy till the day we die. Instead, I made you cry. I fucked up. I made a mistake. Nobody does it better than myself. I'm sorry. Je suis désolé. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I fucked up. I made a mistake. Nobody does it better than myself. I'm sorry. I'm not ashamed to say I wish I could have you back maybe one day. All right.
Fucked up.
Y'all did such a good job.
Yeah,
I
that was
so
such a
happy.
fun day.
Yes.
I hadn't seen that since he passed away, actually. It was really shot beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I did a really great job.
Thank you.
So now, Kyle, and you know what? Before I actually go on, I was writing down a couple of things here because the first thing I did was I asked my business partner before the show that I wanted to know how to say certain things because I didn't know. Like, for example, I've never done a drug in my life. I've never been drunk. I've never had a hangover. I didn't want to say that and make it seem like I'm trying to put myself above anybody.
No.
I didn't know how to word that in saying that.
To me, that's just the same as saying you don't have any tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
And there's
don't.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
No.
Okay. And so like before, when I was saying, when did you realize, like with Jake, that there was something wrong? And I wrote it down because I thought, is that the right terminology to use? Because is there something wrong? So from my perspective, I just want to know, is it survivor? Is it recovering? Is it what? There are so many questions that I have. And before I ask all of those questions, I just want to know your story first. But
Sure.
is this a normal reaction from people?
Oh my God, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
So- Yeah. No, you can go ahead.
Just to answer that really quick, I know that this is his time. I consider myself an addict.
Yeah.
The last time that I used was March 27th, 2005. But I am an addict.
Yeah.
I don't use today. I do consider myself, in recovery. I am a recovering addict. But to me, for me to keep it real, I am an addict.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And I feel the same way. I'm always going to identify as a heroin and crystal meth addict. Like, it's been such a big part of my life. And then entering recovery has given me the life that I have today. And I wouldn't change any of the choices that I made for anything because I'm so grateful that it led me to this place. So, yeah, no, I'm a total junkie. Yeah, girl.
Now, is that a part of the recovery? Is because, you guys are just, the way you worded it, it's just very upfront. This is what I'm an addict. And you just said I'm a crystal meth addict and this. So just by saying that and not in a way sugarcoating it at all, I guess that helps because you're so upfront about it. And I guess that's you admitting it.
It helps. And it also, I think it's more about a level of honesty that, it doesn't really faze me the way it might faze somebody else that used drugs and alcohol but is still in active addiction or is feeling that in-between phase of I want to get well but I don't know what to do. I think it's also a part that like my opinion on it is that I have achieved this level of freedom from something so unbelievably shattering, that, you know, left my life in shambles. And so I want people to know that they too have a chance at getting well. You know, it doesn't have to be just like these islanders of crazy sober people. Like anybody can get well, you know.
When did yours begin, or when you first used?
Yeah, so I started very, very young, and I'm kind of a product of the current opioid crisis in the United States. I got hurt at 11 years old in football because my parents thought maybe football like make him walk with a little bit less swing in his hips and a little
more butch,
little stronger wrist, right?
How did that work
Well,
out
that
for them?
didn't work.
My parents are amazing people, but they found out that maybe that didn't work the way they wanted it to. Yeah. And I had a severe injury. I was overprescribed medication, and that's by no fault of the physician. That was what was considered appropriate at the time. I was given Flexeril, which is a pretty strong muscle relaxer, and I was given a very heavy dose of hydrocodone, which is the brand name Norco, which if any of my addicts are watching, they know that's some good shit. And so
I remember Flexeril.
right. Oh yeah, girl.
Good. It's very nice.
And so it progressed where I had always felt different before. I always felt like I was just kind of drifting, and I never connected with anybody 100%. And then once the drugs entered my system, I felt like everything like clicked for the first time, and I could take a deep breath, and I didn't care about judgment or how people perceive me or the things that I don't think I'm doing right. Like for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of peace.
And how old were you?
I was 11.
Wow.
And it progressed. I started getting into hard street drugs when I was 13. The first time that my parents found out the severity of the situation, I was 15. And by this point, you know, I was acting like it was still intranasal, but at this point it had progressed to IV. And then for the next few years began a period of me trying to get sober, but being brought back in. And I think it's because I had a certain delusion that I'm young. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a little heroin and cocaine. It can't be that bad,
Yeah, like
right?
you grow out of it or
yeah,
something.
I'll grow out of it. And joke was on me because I didn't. And
Justification or rationalization at its best.
Oh my God, all the time. I'm like, no, I'm so much bigger than this. Well, unfortunately, the drugs had become bigger than me, and it was my top priority. And, you know, multiple treatment centers, multiple IOPs, detoxes, arrests, you know, severe health problems, overdosing and dying, and then having to be revived with Narcan, you know, and my poor parents and brother who were bearing witness to all this. And, you know, my high school best friend just trying to like pull me back because she could see I was drowning in it. And, you know,
with you dying, was that your like rock bottom?
Oh,
that
no.
Made you, really?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
So it continued after.
Oh, it continued.
If
yeah.
only it could be.
I mean, if an overdose would have been enough to help me get sober, it would have stopped it a few years before, but it continued and more overdoses happened. And it's just, I have been taught from the medical profession that addiction is a progressive, chronic, and fatal disease.
Incurable.
Incurable. But there is a way to arrest the disease, and it takes a lot of work from the addict. You know, there's a certain, and I think that's kind of what goes back to your first question. We're so upfront about it because we know that honesty is the key. As soon as you can admit the level and severity of the problem, there's a shot at recovering. But until that point, I mean, it's scary.
How did you get to your point where you said, I have to do something about this? What happened?
Well, after a few friends, you know, I can empathize where with you came from because I've had many, many close friends, family, relationships, you know, different people in my life die because of drugs and alcohol. And that still wasn't enough. But after a slew of people passed away, I was unemployable. I lost my last big break because I'd been given a lot of really great opportunities to thrive in the work realm, and even that wasn't enough to help pull me out. I was unemployable, spent my life's inheritance. I was 109 pounds. I was having seizures from benzo withdrawal. I had a massive abscess on this hand about the size of a golf ball, and you can still kind of see it, but I had a hypodermic needle break off in my arm. I had staph infection in my neck. I looked like the Walking Dead, and I just got tired. I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep up with the cocktail of drugs that I was taking every day. I couldn't keep lying and hurting my family. I had succumbed to the fact that death would be a better option than continuing to live like this. And so a few really amazing men and women offered me a solution. I hightailed it down to Austin, Texas. I went into a treatment facility that understood where I'd come from and how to help me get situated in recovery. And I mean, even then, my first year of recovery was messy. I was learning how to live my life all over again. But, you know, since the obsession to use heroin and meth and benzos was relieved from me, I can't describe how amazing recovery is, you know.
And how long has it been now?
It's been 4 years and a month. I got sober on July 6, 2013, and I think that's the day that my life really started, because before that, my entire life was a means to an end of finding dope and shooting dope and then being upset once the rush went away and then doing it all over again, like a rat race. Every day was Groundhog Day.
Wow. And now how do your parents and your family feel now, when they see you?
It's surreal because I have this life with them that I could have never imagined. Never. Because
you were going through this during your entire childhood, really, since 11.
All of my formative years.
So this is like the normal years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
It feels like I finally caught up, and today I'm married to an incredible man. We own a business together. I work in the recovery industry, and
shout out to Bo.
Shout out Bo Bumpus. I love you, baby. And I work for Infinite Recovery in Austin. And there's nothing more rewarding than watching the lights come back in these men and women's eyes, because like I tried for so many years and now I get to see them literally risen from the dead. And I'm as active in recovery in my personal life as I am on Facebook, because if you know me, I post a whole lot about recovery. It's a little overwhelming and annoying, but
well, it's actually not, because it was one of your posts that I had responded to, and that is sort of what triggered my initial
the Pride Month post. Yeah.
That I thought I'm going to have a show about this, and I wanted to have you on the show. I knew that, and I'm going to bring up why, because
with the medical belief, because I don't have a PhD, so I can't define it. They do brain chemistry and neuroscience, so they know. I believe I will always have the chronic illness of addiction. It's like cancer. It may go dormant. You may have it in remission, and right now mine is in remission, but at any given moment, if I'm not staying active in my program, if I'm not consistently trying to be and I didn't care where it was or what I was doing. I was powerless.
Yeah.
Like my whole life would come crumbling down for one hit.
Well, the good thing about it now is that you are no longer powerless. You have tons of power. You have it under control, and you are succeeding. So that's very good. I appreciate you bringing your story to my show. And guys, it is not over yet. We are still going to hear from Sarah Joy Mount. We are going to cut to break. We will be right back. Shannon was revealing his actual film.
Did you jump back to us because you messed up?
You're like,
Yeah.
Oh
whoops.
God. Thanks, Shannon.
How about
Thanks
that?
a lot. And you couldn't even let it go that extra half second so that my name would pop up after yours. Had to keep it. Had to keep it saying
absolutely
Shannon
not.
Hauk.
Guys,
Whatever.
Thank you. For those of you who are watching, we are having a very, I personally feel that this is the most educated that I've gotten from one of my shows. This is a really interesting topic, and it's an important topic, I think. And I know, we heard from Chaselyn and we heard from Kyle and Sarah Joy. It seems like this is as common as it is, if it is common. Everyone has their own specific story. And so tell us about you. What's going on?
What do you want to know? Ask.
Well, I know that you guys have been throwing out these terms of I guess, drugs that I don't even know what any of them are. So I guess everyone sort of has their drug that they got addicted to, or
Most people have a drug of choice, which often is referred to as DOC.
Yeah.
I can tell you that my DOC was whatever you had.
Yeah.
wow, okay.
I had stuff that I preferred, but if you had something, I was going to use it.
Take first, ask what it is later.
Oh,
sort of thing.
oh,
Yeah.
oh,
exactly.
absolutely. That's
Yeah.
how I use crack.
Yeah, no, I relate. I mean,
Yeah.
like you asked, like if there's one. I mean,
Yeah.
I needed all three to feel okay. Enough heroin to feel like I enjoyed life. Enough meth to keep my eyes open, and enough
Yeah.
Xanax to keep me from freaking out.
Yeah.
yeah.
When I got to the point where I realized that I was like, it was not working. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
working. It wasn't working for a really long time. But the day that I was waiting for a friend to bring marijuana over, and he brought over crack, and I didn't know it was crack, and I didn't care, and I asked him what it was, and he gave me some street name, and we finished it. And yeah, anyway, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And after we finished it, I was like, so what was that? And when he told me, I was like, oh, that's probably bad. That's probably
bad.
pretty bad. That's probably pretty
And
bad.
that was it on the
Oh,
reaction.
no.
It was
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
probably pretty bad. Oh well.
Well, I was still running with, can you get more?
Yeah.
Got it. So then with Kyle, he's talked about how at 11, and we saw the reason why, with the whole sport injury and everything. What about you? How did it begin?
I got a really late start into the life of addiction. I had addict behavior in my life ever since I was a child. And I can relate with all of the behaviors, all of the feelings a long time before I ever put a substance into my body. I was always, and there's an I was thinking about it. Everybody's gonna hear me say 50 times now, so I have to stop now.
Like, did you say
Like whatever. Why would you say
So
that? Now I'm gonna hear every single one that I say.
How old were you?
When I first used,
Yeah.
I drank a little bit as a teenager and didn't really get it. And it was only really because I could, but I never got drunk. The first time that, and when I turned 21, I became a binge drinker. I drank until I, couldn't stand. I thought that it was fantastic that I was 100 pounds and I was going to outdrink any dude at the table. I stayed sitting until I had to go to the bathroom, and then I, want to fall over, and I'd be like, oh, that's probably not good. And I, would not drink I didn't like it. It took a lot of work and it was expensive and it took a lot of time. And so I didn't do it very often, but I had never done anything else at that point. And so it was what I did, if I had a long day, blah, blah, blah. The first hard drug that I ever did was cocaine in a bathroom at a bowling alley where we went to do karaoke with a girl I had never met.
That you've never met.
Never met.
Okay.
Never met. She's like, hey, do you want to go do something? And I was like,
Okay.
I don't see why not. And we went and did it off of like the, you know, the back of the toilet.
Oh yeah.
That was what we did. And I came out, and my first husband, my fiance at the time, no, we weren't even engaged at that point. He was like, "What did you just go do with that person?" I was like, "Nothing."
I went to pee.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
You literally went to powder your nose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and it didn't like start the ball rolling. It was more or less like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
That wasn't so bad.
Everyone freaks out about it. I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it was like, that didn't change anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, I didn't really feel that, you know, and that was the problem, is that because I got such a slow start, like I was, when you say that, at that, I was 21
Okay.
when that first happened. And so that was the problem for me, is that because I started so slow, it wasn't this huge, you know, downward.
Right. Like I got this under control kind of thing.
I was just like, that didn't seem to be a problem, you know.
So let's
and,
do a little more.
yeah, and you know, but then it would be like months, and then someone else would have something, and I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I did that before.
yeah, that sort of thing. And it wasn't, you know, I mean, I don't even want to get into it, but when I started actually, like I left my first husband because I started using drugs with my neighbor, and who I thought was my boyfriend, but was actually my dealer. And
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I left my husband in the middle of the night. We went to sleep, and I packed a bag and left, and never went back to that's how my marriage ended.
Wow. When did you realize, oh, there's a problem here with myself?
But by the time that I left my husband, I was using speed. And it was never my drug of choice, but it was what the people around me were using, and so it was what I used. And by the time it was very fast. The period of time that I, you know, used, you know, not that 21, not that time in the bathroom, you know, not any of that, was maybe 6 months. And I went down so fast that I was going to die. You know, I was, at the time that I actually had actually happened to be somewhere where there was a scale, I, you know, weighed myself, and I was 40 pounds less than I am now.
Like, and you are itty bitty,
yeah.
teeny tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was not when I was using regularly. That was, you know, when I was trying to, you know, get well for a minute.
Yeah.
And how did you get well? What happened? Like, you know, he said he had good friends and then he saw himself. Was it kind of the same for you?
My boyfriend, the dealer, kept me sick more than he let me get high. And that was part of how he controlled me.
Yeah.
And that was how he kept a car, because the car was mine, and, you know, kept somewhere to go back and crash after, you know, him being awake for 8 days.
Right. They were getting benefits out of all of it.
Oh,
He was
abs-
resourceful.
Oh,
Yeah.
very resourceful.
Yeah.
Ask your question again.
What sparked the ending of it? Of
When I
you
used
catching
crack.
yourself?
When I used crack.
Okay.
When I was in a period where I knew I couldn't use speed, because you know, people talk about functioning addict. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I didn't function. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was wasting. I woke up every single day and didn't, you know, it was never like, oh, the thought of suicide. It was every single day when I opened my eyes, it was, is today the day that I'll do it? Every day. And every day I'd go, well, maybe this afternoon, or, you know, maybe tomorrow. Every single day. And so it was bad very fast for me. And I knew I was an addict. I long before I, you know, ever even had a clue of how I could get clean or any of those things. I was never the person that was ever in denial about that fact. And, you know, when I really got to a point where I was, you know, I knew I couldn't do speed. And so I was doing this marijuana maintenance program
Duh.
You know, which is not a thing. It's not a program.
You're just switching.
It was substitution.
Yep.
And it was because when I used marijuana, I was eating.
Yep.
And so I wasn't dying quite so quickly.
Got it.
When I was doing that, and
Which
so
would make it okay.
which
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Maintain the delusion.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and people say that that's not addictive. Fuck that.
No, it's psychoactive.
Oh.
Anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier can become addictive for people.
My
that are born
only thought
addicts.
was, crap, where am I going to get more?
Exactly.
That was the only thing that I could think of. And so, the bottom when I knew that I had to do something was the night that I used crack and didn't care and liked it. Mm-hmm. And the boyfriend, whatever, was getting out of jail. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh God, he's getting out. There we go.
Yeah.
And that was when I got clean the first time. Relapse is part of my story. Call it a retread. The first time I got clean was October 10th, 2004. Mm-hmm. And I moved myself into a sober living. I've never been through treatment. I have nothing against people that have gone through treatment. I've worked in treatment myself, but I moved myself into a sober living. I got clean in California. I grew up in Southern California. Still was living and running that home.
Wow.
She's a huge part of why I'm here today. And so I moved into there and started going to meetings and really didn't get what recovery was. Lived there for 45 days and then moved out, and I had already gotten a job and all of those things.
Well, I mean, we're going to cut to break, and then we're going to finish this story because we have to finish this story. Yeah. And guys, I want to let all of you know, usually this is an hour-long show, but I'm going to add one more segment because I shouldn't have just done the Trump thing for the first segment. I just thought, we'll run out of things to do, but this has been such an amazing show. I'm going to add another 12-minute section of this show because I want you to finish your story, and I also have a few questions as well. So don't go anywhere, but we'll be right back.
Where it stops, no one knows. Since she was torn apart, now she's the one taking heart longer in her nature start. It's the heart she plays the game, spreads her emptiness, paint remain. Go to hell indeed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are adding another segment, and I don't want to waste time on that, so I'm just going to go ahead. And we were also going to show a clip from the zombie film, but we can wait on that. Stick around for the Dallas Voice Show. Go to their Facebook page, and we will show an exclusive clip from my film, Kicking Zombie Ass for Jesus. But I would love for you to continue your story because you said you were in recovery and then
I don't know if that I would say that I was in recovery.
Okay.
I was going to meetings.
you were going to meetings.
There's a
Got it.
difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a huge
100%.
difference. There's a huge difference between being in recovery, being clean, and just going to meetings.
Yes.
You can be clean and not be in recovery.
Yeah.
You can be going to meetings and not be in recovery. You can go to meetings and not be clean.
Exactly.
Right. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So being clean and in recovery, that's, I would say, the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just one of whatever the others are.
Got it. So then after that you started doing it again?
I was working and was training and got done with training one day early. 1 day early. 7 days of training. I got done 1 day early and I wanted to feel normal. And I ended up somewhere where my drug of choice was. And when I walked in the door, I knew it and I didn't leave. And, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
Yeah.
And I am blessed to say that that was my relapse, was that night. And that's not normal.
Yeah.
Many people die when they go back out.
Yeah.
And so I'm extremely blessed that at this point, that my relapse was one night.
Yeah.
And, I went home the next day and my mom's like, because of course I was living at home,
Yeah.
because I wasn't living in sober living.
No.
I had it handled.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I think I am?
Oh my God.
Right?
Great
Yes.
quote. Great quote.
Yeah. And so, whatever, had to come to terms and it's, I don't even know if it's part of the story, but it makes a difference to me. My dad had told me that we were going to go shopping for a vehicle on Sunday. I relapsed Friday night. And my dad, as he is, took me shopping on Sunday for that car. And it was a truck, and we ended up getting it. And I remember addiction, and she goes, by the way, and I'm not going to say his name, but your ex is getting out of jail, and I know where he is, and if you'd like to know, I can tell you. And I was like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck me. And I remember that I called Kat, who I said a minute ago has passed away clean. I called her at the house and I told her what happened. And she said, you come here now. Now. She said, you're not getting off the phone. I said, you come here now. And if you don't, I'm going to come find you. She said, come home. That we're getting it.
Yeah.
And so I promised myself that I would live there in the sober living until I had 6 months clean. And I went to meetings and I listened for the first time.
And now it all, like, you were applying everything and really listening this time?
I started trying to figure out what I hadn't been doing and what I needed to be doing.
It felt more right, maybe?
I knew that I would die.
Got it.
I knew what my options were. My options were go back out, go find the ex, and die.
Wow. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? I mean,
It takes what it takes.
Yeah. And in you saying that, I have so many questions. One of them is, you had mentioned earlier about that you are an addict. So when you get into a relationship, and I guess this goes for both of you, is when you are in a relationship and you're getting to like this person. I mean, I know you're married. Well, you're both married. But when you are in this relationship, is it sort of like a coming out? Like you have to reveal this?
Oh my God, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Certain
And it's how much do I like this person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so in early sobriety, each and every time I was in early sobriety, I tiptoed around the question because I would be met with either this look of disgust and complete repulsion, like, oh my God, this is a social leper in front of me, or somebody would be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. I'm just a hard drinker. But and every single time that person was like, oh, yeah, I like to party a lot, I'd be like, well, every day you're doing hair of the dog because you can't get out of bed without it. And so it was another person in that denial phase. And so it's a strange thing to have to come out as like a person in recovery, but still tread the line of appropriate behavior and mentions, because I had just met these guys. Like, I wasn't going to tell them, well, here's what you need to do. 90 and 90, you need to get sober, you need to get a sponsor, look into treatment. Like, no.
Well, I found it easy to, or more compatible to be with someone who has experienced something similar as I.
A lot of people date inside the rooms.
Yeah.
See, and for me, like if someone were in my head,
So you belong in Al-Anon then.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so Al-Anon.
You cannot control that.
No,
I know,
that's
but
a
in
certain
my head,
Oh yeah.
in my naive head, that's what I think.
But no, I get it. It's the Hispanic culture with the man, like, I can make this happen, I can make it work and everything. But in recovery, it's like no person, place, thing. Nobody's going to keep you sober, but a conception of something greater than yourself in an active program of recovery. That's what my experience has been.
Well, see, that's another question that I have is, after hearing your stories, is there, when you're like in the jungle of it all, is there anything that someone can do or say that would have snapped you out of it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I died and I still went back out. And so, you know, I think that the best thing that a loved one can do, like specifically for you, Chaselyn, you did all you could by being supportive. You know, if you had understood the entire scope of the situation, I think you would have been a little bit more aggressive in your approach. Right. But ultimately, he was going to do what he was going to do. Everybody and their mom, and I shit you not when I say and their mother, tried to tell me to stop. And I would say, okay, yeah, I'm going to try and get better. Right.
Oh, I thought I wasn't using if I wasn't physically using at that actual moment.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Or if I
I'm
was
not
just
using.
drinking.